Today, I will tell you about the cruel sadists who have achieved tremendous success in the torture of the soul and body of their slaves, the Dark Eldar. Remember, if you find yourself captured by them, use any opportunity to end your life and entrust your soul to the mercy of the Emperor. For if you cannot, your fate will be hard to envy. As the Eldar Empire swiftly plummeted into the abyss of decadence, many of its people indulged in feasts of debauchery not only on their planets but also in giant cities built in the Webway. At the moment of the birth of the god Slaanesh, numerous Eldar lost their souls, which were devoured by the new Chaos god. However, those who were hiding in the largest city, Comorra, managed to survive the fall. Their souls were torn out only partially, driving them insane, yet they were alive and in some safety. But most importantly, unlike their brethren, the Eldar from the city of Comorra did not repent their sins. It was this, and the fear for their souls, as the inhabitants of Comorra did not use soul stones, that helped them find their own path. In their ongoing orgies and murders, they realized that by torturing a victim, the Drukhari nourished their souls with agony and suffering. This prolonged their youth and allowed them to delay the moment of their ultimate consumption by the hungry beast, as they called Slaanesh. Having unravelled the secret to their salvation, the people of Comorra united to venture into the real world together on a hunt. Millions and millions of living beings were captured as slaves, and to this day the Comorrites continue their raids. After all, fragile lives are a swiftly ending resource, and without a constant infusion of suffering, the last true shard of that very Elder Empire will cease to exist. This is how the Dark Eldar were born. The Dark Eldar differ little from their kin in physical terms. Their skin is pale, almost transparent, a consequence of living in a city devoid of sunlight. Thanks to nourishing themselves with the souls of victims and slaves, the Dark Eldar can live for many thousands of years. But they are not completely immortal. Over time they developed a dependency and a wild hunger. Thus they required an endless flow of foreign souls. The Comorrites cling to their existence, for after death, they are guaranteed to fall into the hands of the Slaanesh. Also, psychers are not found among the Dark Eldar, which is very uncharacteristic for their people. Many believe that their abilities disappeared due to a narrow focus on physical perfection. After all, constant skirmishes and wars made the Dark Eldar physically more developed, unlike their brethren. Others believe that the use of psychic powers only attracts unwanted attention from Slaanesh. For this reason, sorcery is strictly prohibited within the territory of Comorra. And this says a lot. After all, Comorra is a city of killers, deceivers, traitors and sadists. The Drukhari, as the Dark Eldar call themselves, compensate for their lack of psychic powers by using a plethora of psychically charged artifacts. In terms of technology, they are very similar to their kin from the craft worlds, with the only difference being that the Comorrites do not have bone singers, and thus they have to build and assemble necessary items instead of growing them from wraithbone. The dark city of Comorra itself is a colossal agglomeration of islets of various sizes, constantly moving close to each other in an endless whirlwind. Towering over these islets are gigantic black spires, the size of which can even drive frail minds to madness. Indeed, it is incorrect to refer to Comorra as merely a city. It is more accurately a vast collection of satellite kingdoms and cities, interconnected by countless portals and hidden pathways in the Webway. Separate parts of the Dark City exist in the real world, albeit at great distances from each other. However, thanks to the network of portals, moving between them is extremely easy. Any major Imperial hive world would seem like a dollhouse in comparison to the dimensions of Comorra, whose population exceeds even entire star systems. Over Comorra hang stolen stars Ilmea, or Black Suns, as they are called by the Drukhari. These are dying stars that have been moved into the Webway to feed their energy to the Drukhari realm. Between the spike-covered spires, endless streams of ships constantly fly, as this is the most convenient method of transportation, of course, not counting the Webway portals. Ruling over all this disjointed place is the supreme overlord of the dark city of Comorra, Asdrubal Vecht. The main ruling elite are the Cabal, a group of Drukhari that obeys the Supreme Ruler and his closest associates. An Archon Supreme Lord has the right to establish his own laws and orders. The Cabal also serves as the army of its Archon, which he leads on hunts for slaves or on wars for power among other Cabals. Archons constantly weave intrigues among themselves, hire assassins to eliminate their rivals from other Cabals, and wage wars for territory, influence and power. Cabals are quite numerous, and constant warfare requires reinforcement of manpower. Therefore, to maintain their numbers, many Dark Elders are artificially grown in special capsules. Such Comorites are initially at the lowest rungs of their people's hierarchy, while those born by natural means immediately receive great privileges and high status. The Cabals themselves are the result of the evolution of pleasure cults that dominated Eldar society before the fall. Over the years, they have transformed into something more than just street gangs feuding over territory. The next important association is the Homunculi Covens. It is unknown exactly how one can become one of them. Their lives are always shrouded in a veil of darkness and secrets. However, they are simply essential for the survival of their people. Homunculi are unrivaled masters of torture, behind-the-scenes masters, true connoisseurs of pain who relish every moment of suffering they inflict. Perhaps there is no one more cruel than the Drukhari in the Dark City. The Homunculi Covens dwell in the lower and darkest parts of Comora, where nothing distracts them from the endless delight in the pain of thousands of their captives. With the help of cunning inventions, the most elaborate poisons and toxins, and exquisite knowledge in anatomy, the Homunculi are able to prolong the agony of their victim, preventing death until the very last drop of their soul. Moreover, the Homunculi are extremely skilled in modifying bodies. Hence, many Dark Eldar turn to them to acquire new abilities. For instance, these flesh sculptors can easily grow wings on a client's back or replace his skin with durable elastic scales. There is practically no operation that the Homunculi could not perform. They also enhance themselves, growing new limbs or strengthening their bodies, but despite their talents in self-modification, all Homunculi, without exception, cannot restore their youth. Yet, they continue to extend their lives. However, they are much more sensitive to others' pain and derive far more pleasure from it. In time, they must seek even more sophisticated torture methods to experience the same vivid emotions. In battle, the Homunculi are terrifying opponents. Moving gracefully and slowly across the battlefield, they strike the enemy with weapons capable of desiccating an opponent in an instant, or blades imbued with the most horrible poisons. Upon death, Homunculi are reborn in one of the clones they previously created. Another important aspect of Dark Eldar society is the witch cult. Since the fall, the Drukhari have constantly been in search of intense feelings, and nothing in the Dark City offers such a range of emotions as the spectacle of a cruel, bloody gladiator battle in hundreds of arenas scattered throughout the city. These arenas belong to the witch cult's groups of female assassins who have honed the art of war to lofty pinnacles. Every night, battles are held in the arenas between the cult warriors and the slaves they have captured or aliens they have seized. Each arena is unique with its secrets, traps, and other challenges that befall the unfortunate souls who enter the fray. The battles in the arenas are so horrific that even their mere spectating quenches the bloodlust of the audience. It's an effective method for controlling the bloodthirstiness of Comora's residents, preventing the Drukhari from descending into anarchy. Before the battle, members of the cults don light, open, seductive attire that offers no protection. Thus the witches tease the enemy and demonstrate their superiority in combat. The witches are led into battle by the succubus, the most experienced witch, whose age reaches many centuries. The frequent battles and the pleasure of killings help to keep her body young and attractive. It is usually the succubi that draw all the viewers' attention to themselves, for their dance of death is always performed flawlessly. The Archons of Cabals often find themselves as patrons of certain witch cults, granting them not only recognition from the populace, but also providing them with truly mighty allies. The witches themselves are not averse to venturing into the real world together with a Cabal force, as this allows them to showcase all their refined skills to the enemy. And their most favoured opponents are the commanding officers and leaders. Each witch possesses numerous trophies taken from the defeated bodies of orc bosses, space marine heroes and chaos champions. Homunculus covens, witch cults and cabals are divided into many separate groups, often competing with each other. Despite such fragmentation, their compositions are similar. An Archon's retinue is a very diverse company of his closest warriors and favourites. However, in addition to Dark Eldar, it can include creatures of other races. For instance, Archons often choose the snake-like, four-armed Sleeth race as their bodyguards. Dark Eldar are not known for loyalty and dedication, so a self-respecting Archon would hardly want to have guards of his own kin. Meanwhile, the Sleith excel at their task. Equipped with a rich arsenal, they easily repel any attempt to attack their master. Among the most popular members of an Archon's retinue are the Medusae. These creatures originally resemble flying brains floating in the warp. They feed on strong emotions, mainly nightmares. If a living being appears in their realm, they attach to its head and take control of its body, breaking into the real world. This is how the Dark Eldar catch them and put restraining helmets on their heads. The primary use of Medusae is to absorb the emotions of the Archon's victims on the battlefield and store them in their consciousness. Later, eating one of the parasite's tentacles can let one re-experience the full spectrum of despair, fear and suffering of the victims, as if the battle had happened just a moment ago. Life among the aristocracy in Comorragh is full of lies, intrigue and betrayal. Therefore, Archons often include servants from the cult of Lamia in their retinues. Apart from their impressive abilities in the realm of fleshly pleasures, they are also the most talented poisoners and poison experts in the entire Dark City. Having at least one Lamian on their side grants an Archon access to the deadliest and most agonizing poisons. Lovers and warriors of the Lamians are rightfully valued among the aristocracy. Moreover, the rulers of Cabals love to collect exotic beasts for their collections or for combat in the arenas. Most precious to them is possession of the terrifying Urgul, blind, yet extremely deadly and agile Xenos. They have incredibly developed senses of smell. Archons are fond of using them as chained dogs and assassins against those foolish enough to challenge their power. Everyone living in the Dark City must know how to defend themselves. It often turns out that even children can fight better than many of the inhabitants of the craft worlds. The most skilled young Eldar might be noticed by Sybarites, cunning, agile and strong warriors, who often become leaders of battle squads. If a young Eldar gains approval from a Sybarite, they receive weapons, armor and the status of a warrior, the lowest rank in the Cabal army. In return, the newly minted warrior swears allegiance to the Cabal. However, as you have already understood, allegiance is not often found among the Dark Eldar. On the other hand, once they become warriors, this elevates them above the ordinary citizens. Thus, it may become the first step on the path to greatness and power. Their armor functions on the same principle as that of their craft-world brethren. However, their weapon is a more heavy-duty splinter rifle, whose blades inflict exponentially more pain on the enemy. Born not in artificial capsules, but naturally, these Eldar occupy a higher social position, which is reflected in the quality of the weapons and armor they use. They form separate squads, and their leader bears the title of Drakon. Now let's move on to the grim creatures that accompany the Homunculi on the battlefields. First come the Hemacolites, or Raks. These are Dark Eldar, dissatisfied with their appearance. They swear allegiance to the Homunculi, asking in return to alter their bodies. Eventually, they transform into monstrous monsters, with several additional arms. Their wrists are replaced with cunning devices which assist both in combat and in medical operations. They always wear masks on their faces, and their thoughts are occupied only by a thirst for blood and ascension. They are remarkably resilient, tough and strong, but most importantly, they unconditionally obey any order from their master, doing all the dirty work for him. What scares the most is that the Dark Eldar, who cease to derive pleasure from anything, voluntarily undergo such transformations, just to dispel boredom. But there are other creatures of the Covens that no one would want to become by their own will. The monstrous grotesque, a massive pile of muscles, protruding bones, deadly claws and blades. Those who have somehow angered the homunculi are transformed into these. The master of flesh creation may conduct experiments on his victim for years, eventually turning their body into a mindless monster. Its face, with an eternally frozen fear, is covered by a heavy mask. After lobotomy, these beings become extremely docile, although sometimes the homunculi like to leave grotesque bits of consciousness, so they eternally experience the full horror that happened to them. On the battlefield, they unleash a real massacre, tearing opponents apart and slicing them up with their cleavers and clawed paws. But the true pinnacle of the homunculi Coven's art are the pain engines. The most common of these models are the Talos and Kronos. Talos are levitating torture and slaying machines equipped with powerful arms and sturdy armor. Their primary function is the collection of body parts from opponents so that after the battle the homunculi can use them in their experiments. The Kronos, however, can literally extract the soul from an enemy, causing almost instantaneous aging. As a result, the victim eventually disintegrates into dust. These machines amplify the energy of the agonizing soul and broadcast it around themselves, nourishing the Dark Eldar with the suffering of the enemy. This process is extremely pleasurable, so Archons sometimes acquire a Kronos to feed on souls even outside of battle. Besides their female combat formations, the witch cults have squads primarily composed of men. They are hunters and tamers of various monsters, which they track down across the galaxy. Then they break their will and train them to later unleash them into the arena or the battlefield, while the tamers themselves watch from above, standing on gravboards and driving the monsters with energy whips. The order of the incubi or incubus stands apart. They are encased in heavy swordsman's armor and see endless combat as the purpose of their life. They eagerly become mercenaries to the Archons, as this allows them to demonstrate their prowess as warriors. A candidate for the incubi must first become strong enough to kill another incubus and take his armor. Then he must track down an aspect warrior from the craft worlds, kill him and split his spirit stone. Only then is the candidate accepted into the ranks of the incubus. Rumors suggest that the Order of Incubus is a dark reflection of the Elder from the craft worlds and bears a remote resemblance to the aspect warriors of those artificial worlds. Another special kind of warrior is the Mandrake, horrifying beings that live in the shadows, and by this we mean quite literally in the shadow. Mandrakes exist simultaneously in both the material and immaterial worlds. Like ghosts, they hunt their victims and feed on the suffering of their souls. Their origin is unknown, but one thing is certain: they were once Dark Eldar. They are surrounded by an aura of death and cold, which they can also manipulate, firing energy projectiles from their hands. For their talents in stealth and shadow travel, Archons often try to recruit them to their side. Usually, in return, Mandrakes ask for slaves, but sometimes their requests are extremely vague and unclear. In any case, refusing them is dangerous. Notably, they wear clothing made from the skin of those who have broken agreements with them. Now let's move on to the trio of the most treacherous types of warriors in the Dark City, who also often compete with each other. The first of these are the Scourges. If a warrior accumulates enough wealth and is ready to risk his life, he will order a homunculi to transform his body into a scourge. His bones will be shattered and reassembled, additional muscles grown on his back, and then either bird or membranous wings attached. This is an extremely painful and mortally dangerous operation. However, if the client survives, he must pass the final test. That is, to rise on new wings to the upper spires of the Dark City, where other scourges dwell. On his way, he will be obstructed by two other types of aerial warriors, but more on them later. If the converted reaches his goal, he instantly earns the right to call himself a vital cell of the Dark Elder Society. Indeed, scourges, the principal scouts and messengers among the noble inhabitants of Commorragh. This job is generously paid and also grants impunity. Due to their importance, killing a scourge is considered a grave crime. The most experienced scourges are called solarites. They spend their wealth to further alter their bodies, asking homunculi to elongate their skulls and grow feathers, to resemble predatory birds more closely. The second aerial warriors of Commorragh are the reavers. Skilled gladiators fighting on grav bikes in the skies of the Dark City, they create aerial arenas, refining the art of beheading enemies at full speed on their bikes. A thirst for speed and spectacular killings entirely fills their hearts. The most experienced and famous gladiators might receive the Archon's mercy. These pilots spend so much time in the saddle that during combat they become virtually one with their bike, wreaking havoc on the battlefield while simultaneously performing aerial pirouettes, boasting their skills. The last and most feral of the Dark City's flyers are the street gangs of Hellions. Typically, they are joined by either the youth, those who have transgressed and avoided death from the Cabals, or those who chose freedom from the Archon's rule. These marauding gangs raid both the dark streets of Commorragh and the real world, even attacking cabals of the Archons. Their primary equipment are gravboards. This is an extremely complicated single-person anti-gravity board to control. To master such transport, Hellions consume numerous combat drugs. Their reaction is as sharp as the blades of their hellglaives. Their leaders are known as Heliarchs, the most cunning and treacherous of these bandits. Sometimes, Archons or succubi from witch cults turn to them to hire such wild force into their squads, but it is extremely expensive. The favourite tactic of Hellions is a rapid raid on the enemy, where they sever limbs of their foes at full speed. Then they scatter, only to regroup for a second attack. Well, that covers the infantry units and monsters. But there's more to tell about the machines. The main battle transport of the Drukhari are raider skimmers, fast, light and maneuverable platforms on an anti-gravitational cushion. To give you a foresight, all Dark Eldar machinery utilizes anti-gravity technology. Raiders are adorned from top to bottom with blades and spikes, which are used in battle both for their intended purpose and as places to display slaves and trophies. On the outside, raiders resemble ancient Eldar boats which have been repurposed for combat. The transport itself lacks a roof, allowing the warriors it carries to freely fire from it, and also to leap onto their enemies at any moment. After a battle, still living opponents are either tied up or impaled on the spikes, thereby transported into slavery or to the Dark City. The corpses of the Dark Eldar warriors themselves are taken back in exactly the same manner, demonstrating no particular respect for their bodies. A heavier version of this vessel is the Ravager. Spaces for passengers in it have been converted to accommodate 3 powerful cannons. This, however, has not affected the maneuverability and speed of this type of gravcraft. Its primary targets are the enemy's heavy machinery, be it super-heavy tanks or Titans. For destroying Titans, they even use a unique tactic, which the Drukhari call the Shadow Dance. A group of several Ravagers flies as low as possible over a planet's surface, trying to use the landscape for cover. Once close enough to their target, the leading Ravager strikes the Titan with a shadow spear, a warp beam that creates a barely noticeable breach in the Titan's force shields. This breach lasts only a few seconds, and it's only the supernatural reflexes of a Dark Eldar pilot that allow him to seize this opportunity. In the blink of an eye, powerful cannons fire at this breach point, and the Titan burns in flames before its crew realizes what happened. Even among the skilled Eldar pilots, the Shadow Dance is considered one of the most difficult maneuvers and a sign of supreme piloting skill. However, Ravager pilots are extremely headstrong. Archons often have to negotiate with them before a battle, stating that until the main target of the Ravager squadron is downed, they are prohibited from diverting to other enemies. A rarer but much more powerful type of assault ship is the Reaper, an upgraded version of the Ravager. Its operation revolves around a single powerful weapon fixed on the nose of the anti-grav boat, a storm vortex projector. Before battle, pilots collect storm energy, striking the spires of Commorragh into special vortex chambers mounted on the ship. During combat, energy from these chambers is fed into the nose cannon, unleashing the unrestrained might of the elements. Such salvos instantly disable enemy machinery, while the crew's nervous systems are burnt out. Despite the size of the weapon, Reapers also rely on speed and maneuverability. The capabilities of their cannons are greatly appreciated by Cabals for their ability to not cause special damage to transport and cargo ships, but effectively disable them, which benefits marauders and plunderers. There is also another rare and expensive modification of these grav platforms, called the Tantalus. It has appeared relatively recently. Once the Archon of the Cabal of the Dark Mirror ordered a prototype of such a gravitic vessel for himself to display his status and might. Upon receiving it, he orchestrated a true massacre on the streets of Comera. However, soon he was trapped by a gang of marauders and killed. After that, his Cabal split apart, and the inheritors of his wealth exchanged the schematics of the Tantalus for weapons or gifted them to their new masters. Consequently, these war machines began to appear more frequently in the fleets of various Cabal. The Tantalus represents a significantly improved version of the Raider with a split deck. Reinforced engines allow it to maintain speed despite increased dimensions, while heavier guns and blades augment its combat power. Another form of transport for the Dark Eldar are the fast and deadly grav bikes named Venom. Although small in size, they can carry a whole squad of bloodthirsty warriors. Venom pilots are true professionals, capable of maneuvering even through the flak fire of enemy anti-air defences. This is further aided by holographic flicker field generators, which only further confuse the radars of their adversaries. After deploying their passengers, Venom can cover the warriors with its weaponry. These grav bikes are extremely popular among the Drukhari nobility, who either greatly enjoy hunting their prey from the air or are too mistrustful of their own warriors to join them on the Reaver in battle. A larger Drukhari aircraft is the Razorwing jet fighter. It earned its name in homage to the predators from the planet in the Ceros subsector. Despite being smaller than the aircraft of other races, it nonetheless possesses an impressive arsenal. It is armed with twin splinter rifles, 2 dark spears, and 4 missiles of various types. These include necrotoxin missiles, which release shards of toxic shrapnel upon explosion, killing and pinning the enemy to the ground. There are also Shatterfield missiles, which freeze everything around them with the first explosion, and then rupture the frozen targets with a second. The third type are monoscythe missiles, releasing waves of energy that decapitate the nearest enemies. Usually, successful Reaver grav bike pilots become Razorwing pilots. The Dark Eldar aviation also includes the Voidraven bombers. Like all Drukhari technology, they are very fast and agile, but among the pilots, the bombers are considered the slowest. Voidravens are equipped with dark spears and missiles. The missile types are the same as those of the Razorwing. However, they also have a unique type, the implosive missile. During the explosion of this missile, a field is generated, causing molecular dissonance, as a result of which the victim caught in the blast is literally turned inside out. Moreover, the bombers are equipped with a sound-absorbing system, allowing them to approach their victims almost silently. And their most lethal weapon, the Void Mine, containing a drop of dark light. In the explosion, everything within its radius was literally erased from reality. There is also an older type of combat aircraft called the Raven Fighter. While the Razorwing and Void Raven are merely elegant daggers for precision strikes, the Raven is more akin to a butcher's cleaver, wreaking havoc among enemy ranks. The rear of the aircraft is equipped with twin fragmentation cannons firing poisons and sharp crystals. Meanwhile, 2 shadow spears are mounted on the wings, which particularly cruel pilots can replace with disintegrators, rapid-fire guns that shoot antimatter capable, in the literal sense, of evaporating a well-fortified enemy. As you can see, the military tech of the Dark Eldar keeps pace with their rivals in combat power and the elegance with which they deliver death. Therefore, its destruction is a priority on the battlefield. Naturally, this comes after the elimination of the most important and prominent figures of their command. The most prominent figure in Dark Eldar society is Supreme Archon Asdrubal Vecht. As befits such a notable figure, his past is shrouded in darkness. However, Vecht himself likes to recount his rise. Nevertheless, it would be foolish to take the word of the most cunning ruler of the most devious people at face value. but still we will retell this story. According to Asdrubal Vecht, he was born before the fall of the Elder Empire, and because he was still a child and had not tasted the hedonistic life, the birth scream of Slanesh did not consume his soul. Along with the survivors, he took refuge in the Webway and grew up during the transformation of Comora into the Dark City. He remembers the times when the future Drukhari discovered a way to transform the suffering and agony of victims into life energy, thereby strengthening their bodies and souls. However, Vecht still became a slave in the Dark City, but thanks to his incredible cunning, treachery and sharp mind, he began to ascend the social ladder. Gradually, he became the leader of one of the street gangs, and then he added the others to his fold. The then rulers of Comora did not give much importance to the gradually increasing influence of Asdrubal Vecht, for which they ultimately paid. From the united gangs, Asdrubal Vecht created the Cabal of the Black Heart. In one of the raids into reality, he managed to capture a space marine cruiser belonging to the chapter of the Salamanders. He knew that the vengeful servants of the Imperium would not forgive such impudence, and soon an army of the Emperor's servants invaded the Webway and Comora itself. The attack was repelled, but the entire leadership was destroyed, and their cabals lost their influence. It was then that Asdrubal Vecht ascended to the throne. The Cabal of the Black Heart rapidly grew richer, gaining strength and influence, soon becoming the largest and most powerful. In effect, this made Vecht the ruler of the Dark City. For even after so many centuries, no force has arisen that could wrest power from him. The fact that he has been able to maintain power with an iron grip all this time only further emphasizes his intelligence and caution. For he has survived all assassination attempts. It is known that he has a double named Geldling, whom he uses from time to time. With his influence, Vecht doesn't need to personally participate in battles. However, sometimes the bloodlust takes over, and the Supreme Archon enters the battlefield, seated upon the throne of Deus of Destruction, a unique modification of the Ravager. To ensure the Archon's safety, a special force field is installed on his transport. Sometimes, Asdrubal Vecht prefers to fight on foot. In battle, he uses special obsidian orbs, created from the souls of tormented victims. Moreover, they heal the Archon in combat, feeding on the fear of his enemies. His primary weapon is the Scepter of the Dark City, a symbol of supreme authority. This tool is equipped with pain inducers, intensifying the pain inflicted on victims. Asdrubal Vecht is one of the most dangerous figures in the galaxy, and has been one of the primary targets for the Officio Assassinorum for many hundreds and thousands of years. However, neither the Imperial assassins nor Vecht's rivals from the Dark City itself have been able to end his life. Therefore, only the Emperor knows how much more trouble he will bring to the Imperium, and only the Emperor can protect against it.